Dear learners, we shall be starting with the lecture on fundamental terms of a contract of sale of goods. Fundamental terms in a contract of sale of goods refers to the two expressions condition and warranty. Now, this topic we shall be undertaking in two lectures. This is part 1. Here we would be introducing you to the concepts of what is a condition, what is a warranty under a contract of sale, along with some exercises and examples. And in the part 2 lecture, we would be going into some other aspects of conditions and warranties, such as stipulations as to time and how a condition may be converted into a warranty. So to begin with our discussion, in the formation of a contract with respect to sale of goods, generally it is possible that there are various negotiations between both the parties. So the parties may negotiate on the quantity, on the price, on the quality, so on and so forth. So these are essentially statements which are made by both the parties. Now, negotiation statement, they may become a part of the actual contract, may not become a part of the actual contract, depending upon if it has been mutually included in the contract or not. And so the negotiations which are in the form of statements, it is possible that they are included or they are excluded. Now, those statements which are actually included into a contract, they are known as terms or stipulations of a contract. Now, these terms and stipulations of a contract may either be a condition or may be a warranty. Now, whether a particular stipulation in a contract of sale is a condition or a warranty depends in each case on the construction of the contract, on the intention of the parties. So, taking up a condition first, it is defined under section 12 subclause 2 of the Sales of Goods Act. According to this provision, a condition is a stipulation in the contract of sale which is essential to the main purpose of the contract. So the key word here is the main purpose of the contract, meaning thereby the parties may not have entered into a contract if a particular condition or a main purpose is not included in the contract. So this is a very fundamental to the life of the contract and is a reason, rather a fundamental reason, why the parties enter into the contract itself. Now, as a fundamental reason for parties to enter into the contract, a contract would perhaps be left meaningless if such a condition is not there. So the breach of a condition, it gives a remedy to treat the contract as repudiated. So if there is a contract between the buyer and the seller and there is a certain condition which is very important to the buyer and the buyer has not been able to derive the benefit out of the contract because there has been a breach by the seller on this fundamental condition, then the buyer can repudiate the contract or treat it as resigned. So a condition is a fundamental stipulation in the contract. It forms the basis of the contract as to why parties enter in an agreement, and therefore it is regarded as something that is indispensable to the life of the contract. Rather, it is like an oxygen to the contract. So just like you take away the oxygen and it would be impossible for any natural person to survive, In the same way, if you take the condition out of a contract, the contract would not be able to survive, because then there would be nothing that would be left for the buyer in the contract. So therefore, as strong as a condition is a stipulation in the contract, similar strength is given to the remedies which are available to the buyer in case of breach of this condition, which is the right to treat the contract as repudiated. Now we will be taking up an illustration. So we have a kind of a agreement between two parties, X who's a buyer and Y who's a seller. So on a particular date, let's say 16th of February, X contracts with Y to buy a Samsonite suitcase for his travel to Shimla on February 20th. The suitcase is to be delivered by February 19th. So now the exercise that you have to do here is that you have to identify what are the fundamental stipulations in this contract, or what is a condition in this contract. So for your ease, I have highlighted some keywords here. So first is a Samsonite suitcase. So Samsonite is a particular brand that the consumer is looking for. Then he is looking for a particular kind of a product, that is a suitcase. So instead of a suitcase, if something else is provided, let's say like a pen, so it would be a deviation of the very purpose for which the buyer had entered into a contract. You just take your own case. If you go and buy a Samsonite suitcase and what is delivered to you is something other than a suitcase, so you won't make the payment, because that is a breach of a contract. Or if the suitcase is provided of some other company, then also you have a right to repudiate the contract, because this is not what was agreed between the parties. Then the third is that he has bought the suitcase for a particular purpose, that is to make a travel at a destination in which the weather will be very cold. And so accordingly, it was agreed that the suitcase has to be delivered by the 19th of February. So here, some of the expressions that have been highlighted, if there is any breach of such stipulation, then it would be regarded as a breach of condition. So if, let's say, the suitcase is delivered on 25th February, again it would be a breach of condition, because by 25th of February it will not serve the purpose of the buyer who requires it for a travel on a particular date which he has intimated to the seller. So therefore, these are the four conditions that can be made out from this contract. Now let us take up another illustration. Again, two parties, X is the buyer, Y is the seller. X contracts with Y, vendor in used cars or second-hand cars, to purchase second-hand Honda City car. The color is white, model is VXI, which he personally chose while visiting the garage. Here, the exercise that you have to undertake is that you have to identify in this contract what are the fundamental stipulations or conditions of this contract. So now let us go inside the contract stipulations. Firstly, the buyer is looking for a second-hand car. So maybe he is not able to afford a new car. So the first is a second-hand car. So if instead of a second-hand car, he is provided a third-hand car, or if he is provided a new car, then that would be a breach of condition, because he is specifically looking for a particular car which is used by only one person before. The second is he is looking for a particular brand which is Honda, and he is looking for a particular make, that is a Honda City car. Then he has personally chosen the color which is white, and he has chosen a model. Now, apart from that, it is possible while visiting the garage of the seller that there are several Honda City cars which are second hand, which are white, and which have the model VXI. So he has personally chosen a particular car of this model, make, color. So these are the conditions in this contract. So if he gets any car other than Honda City car, the contract can be repudiated. In the same way, if he gets, instead of a VXI model, he simply gets a VX model, again that is a model below what he chose, contract can be repudiated. And it has to be that particular car which he has chosen among the several similar options. So if any of the stipulations that I have highlighted here, if they are breached, it would be a breach of condition of the contract, in which case the buyer may resign the contract and not take the delivery of the car, or to return the delivery of the car and not make the payment. In case if he has made a payment, he can sue the seller for the payment to be repaid back to the buyer of the car. Then we will move on to what is a warranty. It is explained under section 12 clause 3 of the Sale of Goods Act. According to this provision, a warranty is a stipulation that is collateral to the main purpose of the contract, the breach of which gives rise to claim for damages but not to a right to reject the goods and treat the contract as repudiated. So here, while for a condition it was the main purpose of a contract, the warranty is only a collateral purpose to the main purpose. So it is like supportive to the main purpose, or it is like incidental to the main purpose, or it is like supplementary to the main purpose. So the purposes for which somebody may enter into a contract, they may be broken down into the main purpose, and for other purposes which are not main but are only supportive, incidental, or supplementary. Now this is not as important as a condition, and so therefore the right to remedy which is given here is not as strong as compared to a remedy for a breach of condition. So here the buyer can sue the seller for damages which he may have suffered for a breach of warranty, but he cannot treat the contract as repudiated. So repudiation is provided for a condition and damages is provided for a breach of warranty. Now to look at the other features of warranty. So it is in the nature of an additional stipulation which is collateral to the main purpose or attached to the main purpose, but it is not a main purpose itself, a breach of which gives rise to damages only. So this is not a fundamental basis of the contract, and if there is a breach of any warranty, the buyer may still choose to continue with the contract and he may sue the seller for any damages or loss that has been caused to the buyer. Now let us take up an exercise for this. Supposing there are two persons, X and Y. X contracts with Y, who is a vendor in used cars, to purchase second-hand Honda City car, color white, model VXI, which he personally chose while visiting the seller's garage. Parties further agreed that during the period of 6 months from purchase, if the car's engine malfunctions, the car can be returned. For other malfunctions, Y, that is the seller, to be responsible for repair. Car's cooling system stops working within a period of 3 months, and Y refuses to repair. So now the question is, what right does X, that is the buyer, has? The answer to this question depends upon another question as to what are the conditions in this contract and what are the warranties here. So now you have to undertake this exercise of identifying the conditions and the warranties in this contract. So this is very much like another example related to condition that we had discussed. So for example, second-hand car, this will be a condition. A particular brand, Honda, would be a condition. A particular make, this will also be a condition. The color and the model and his personal choice, these all would be conditions. However, the parties agreed that if the car's engine malfunctions, so engine is a very important component of the car can be returned. So in what case can you repudiate the contract? So it is like both parties who had entered into a contract now are returning whatever benefit they got from the contract. So if the car engines malfunction, then the car can be returned from the buyer to the seller. In the same way, the seller will return the price to the buyer. So if something can be returned and the contract can be brought back to its original position before it was performed, so malfunction of the engine for a period of 6 months, this is also a condition. However, there are other malfunctions for which Y will be responsible for repair. So repair means that the car would not be returned to the seller, but the cost of repairing would be borne by the seller. So it is like other malfunctions are in the nature of a warranty. So the cooling system malfunctions. So this is like an other malfunction. So why? Because has refused to repair this. So the remedy that is available to the buyer is the remedy for damages and not to repudiate the contract. So therefore, we have two warranties here. First, other malfunctions, and the second is the malfunction in the cooling system of the car. So this is how you segregate the conditions and warranties in a contract. So with this, we come towards the closure of part 1 lecture on fundamental terms. We have discussed what is a condition, what is a warranty, what is the difference between the two, and what is the difference in their importance as well as remedies. So in the next part 2 lecture, we shall continue with this discussion on conditions and warranties with related to certain other aspects. Thank you very much.